Stop Doing Side Bends is a video that I've done before. So I sort of compared the side bend to the suitcase carry, and I got a lot of questions about it. Some negative, some positive. Some people found it a little bit controversial. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit more meat on the bones, a bit more context around it, and basically going to give my rationale as to why I suggest not doing side bends. I'm going to cover it in these 3 points. We're going to look at weight training versus skills training. We're going to look at amateurs versus professionals. And then hopefully I'm going to summarise and wrap up with sport-specific core training, which it should make it pretty obvious why it's not really that much of a necessary exercise to do. Part number 1 is weight training versus skills training. What most people think sport-specific training is recreating the movements in a sport and then bringing them into the gym and then training them under load. Now, that has somewhat of a place, but when you go through sport-specific qualifications and training, one of the things that you're taught is not to, in some respects, recreate the movement per se. So what the weight training is there to do is build the different components of fitness. There are more, but here are 4 of them: endurance, strength, power, and speed. Now, when it comes to sport-specific weight training, what they will do is they will look at the sport and they will try to understand the components that are required for that sport. What they will then do is design a training program based on those components. What they will also do is look at the different position within that sport. And then they will again make it even more specific with regards to the weight training that they need to do. Because one position may need more endurance, whereas one position may need greater strength levels. They may need a combination of them. They may need all of them. They will need all of them to a certain degree, but there may be endurance needs to be enhanced that much more because of the particular sport or the particular position that they play. So it's not that they're only going to work on one. They will work on all of them to a broad sense, which we're going to talk about in the next set of slides, but then they will enhance the ones that really focus on that particular sport and that particular position in that sport. When we then come on to skills training, this is when we would look at the golf swing, we would look at the tennis serve, we would look at the gymnastics flip, we would look at the free kick technique, whatever it may be, the goal kicking technique in American football, whatever. What we would then do is try and transfer these enhanced components into the golf swing, the tennis serve, the gymnastics flip, the goal kicking of rugby or American football. So you can then start to see that there is a difference between the two, because there will be a degree of analysis with regards to that. So they're with their coaches, obviously looking at a video, looking at technique. With weight training, they'll have a strength and conditioning coach with them. They'll be working in the gym. There will be a degree of analysis, but essentially they're looking to build these components and aren't terribly focused on the particular skill. Now, if these components are being detrimental towards the skill, then the weight training will change. So again, this will be analysed to see if that's happening. If it's enhancing it, they will obviously continue doing it. So what we're going to talk about next is what I would describe as sort of amateurs training versus professionals training. And I'm going to talk you through these in 4 different slides. They come from 3 different books and my own method that I use. The 3 books are behind me. So this one is called Periodization for Training, a periodization training for sport. And this information is on page 58 of that book. And essentially what he's talking about is there is a diagram of a pyramid with, excuse my poor drawing, with 3 different levels to it. Stage 1, which is the bottom one, is multilateral development. Stage 2, specialized training. Stage 3, which is the cherry on the top, which is high performance training. Now, down here, it's just a broad base of fitness. As we start moving through the stages and up the pyramid, it becomes more specific and more specialised. And as you can see here, more specific to the sport and potentially the position of the sport. So what happens is early on in a professional's career, they should be down here, just building their muscle groups, their ligaments, their tendons, and just building a body that can cope with what's going to happen to them over the next 15 years of their career in the professional sport. Obviously, once they become a professional, they've got their position, they will have a sport-specific training program. Now, where amateurs and professionals differ is a professional will work all the way up through this. And the reason I say amateurs only really need to go as far as stage 2 is because they haven't got the time to really put into stage number 3. Now, they may be sort of in a job where it allows them to train 3, 4, 5 hours a day on weight training and skills training. So they're essentially a professional, just with a different job that pays them an income. Now, here, obviously, we're just building a broad base of fitness, which is what most people can do. And they may do a very little bit of this, if anything, of sport-specific training. Obviously, professionals will go all the way to the top and they will spend most of their time during their career up in this top level. So what we'll do next is talk about the next pyramid. Number 2 comes from Movement by Gray Cook on page 122. He again talks about 3 stages: functional movement, functional performance, functional skill. So again, he's just talking about the ability to explore full range of movement. So we're adding in flexibility, range of movement, balance training, motor control. So body control and awareness, proprioception. So again, here, it's just a broad base of fitness. Everyone should have a level of this. All professional athletes will have a level of this. But as I've mentioned, they will go into their sport-specific training. What we then start doing is becoming a little bit more enhanced and advanced. Building a physical capacity, building endurance, strength, power, speed with this capacity. So under load or under a duration to try and get the physical capacity up. Well timed and coordinated. So if they're going to be under load, if they're going to be within their or pushing their capacity, it's got to be well timed and coordinated to reduce risk of injury. And again, building power. Then functional skill, specific skills training. So again, looking at specific skills, why are they required, who needs them, why do they need them, and then going and enhancing those. So again, if we take the example, which is essentially 3 blocks, it's much the same. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Amateurs will mostly stay in this area here. As we get up to more professional or people who can spend more time training, it will move up into here. Number 3 comes from Ultimate Back Fitness and Performance by Dr. Mcgill. It's on page 10 if you need to go and look for it. Now, you should start seeing a pattern here. He does it in 5 stages. Stage 1 is all about motor patterns. Again, building the movement patterns, training the brain to go into those positions naturally and automatically. So identifying problems, progress basic movement patterns, and then basic balance challenges. Whole body and joint stability. Build stability while sparing joints. Stability at one joint may require mobility at another. So again, flexibility, balance training, coordination, so on and so forth. Then we're talking about increasing endurance and increasing strength. As he gets on to stage 5, it's then speed, power, and agility. Again, we're starting to think about specific nature of the components that one person needs. But down here, everyone needs the endurance, everyone needs a basic level of strength. Then we're building into the specific nature of it and optimizing the neuromuscular efficiency. So getting those pathways to work quickly, work efficiently, so they don't use up huge amounts of energy. And finally, it's the method that I use. So from these types of methods, this is kind of how I've built my method for the people that I work with. Stage 1, 2, and 3. Movement training. Improve fundamental movements. Lift, carry, push, pull, rotate, getting up. Other core skills, things as simple as breathing whilst under load. A lot of people, if they're holding a plank or a side plank, they forget to breathe. A lot of people lifting heavy weights, again, forget to breathe. They don't know how to breathe correctly during that. Building mobility, stability through joints. Once we've kind of got that basic, we then build a fundamental fitness. So we add capacity to it. We get people working for a duration, for a set of reps, getting them to build their capacity in which they can work. So this is building those fundamental components that I talked about: endurance, strength, speed, power. And then finally at the top, advanced fitness. Build activity-specific fitness. So if it is someone playing a specific sport and they have the time and the inclination to go and do this type of training, then we can do it. But most people will just go stage 1, stage 2, because that's all they need. If that person is that way inclined and they have the time to be able to do it, we can take them into advanced fitness and building those specific elements of it. This is where we can start talking again about the side bend as an exercise that people are trying to use for sport. Now, if we go right back to the start and we talk about golf swing, tennis serve, gymnastics flip, that is a very elastic movement. So strength training creates a toughness in tissues and bears load, and this takes away from elasticity. So if we are doing copious amounts of strength training, and as I mentioned, every athlete will need some degree of strength, but it needs to be, depending on the sport that they're doing, it needs to be balanced off with elasticity. So a golfer, a tennis player, or a gymnast, they will need a level of strength, they will need a level of endurance, a level of power, and a level of speed. But if they just focus on long time under tension, doing squats, 3 seconds down, 3 seconds up, eccentric training, they are creating a toughness to their tissues, which can bear load, but if you look at their sport, doesn't require them to bear load. Golf swing, tennis serve is an example of that. They need to create huge amounts of elasticity, so that needs to be trained. And that comes into pulsing versus constant tension. So, loosen the collagen through mobility and train it to become elastic. So essentially, it's the opposite to strength. But you now lose the ability to bear load. So what we need to be able to do, certainly for those types of athletes, is pulsing. So that is, again, having a degree of endurance, strength, speed, power, so on and so forth. But then they need to tune it. So this is where they would then tune that pulsing in the gym. So they would start using more in the way of power exercises, which is strength and speed put together. So it's lifting weight very fast. So that's where your elasticity will start to come from. What you can then do is then transfer that skill out into the golf swing, into the tennis serve, into the gymnastics flip. But you need to train the elasticity. Now, if we're talking about the golf swing more specifically, you could also argue this for the tennis serve, is we don't want rotation of the spine. So a lot of people here will talk about rotation of the spine. We need a flexible spine. We need to, do Russian twists or things like that to rotate the spine and make the spine strong. Unfortunately, 70% of power comes from external rotation in the trailing hip. So the power is coming from the hip. So we need to train the hips to create the power. The core pulses and then transfers that power through a stiffened core. So as it's contracting, down the club head onto the ball. So disc collagen held together by a ground substance to get movement. You often soften ground substance to get this movement, but lose the ability to bear load. So again, if we're doing a lot of strength training for an athlete, like a golfer, like a tennis player, like many other sports people, combat sports is another one, then they're going to lose the elasticity. That yes, they're going to build strength, but they're going to lose the elasticity and the ability for the body to move quickly. So we have to optimize the training, Because again, as I mentioned, strength training isn't a bad thing. It has its place. But when we're talking about sport specific, then we need to start looking at the components required for that sport. And most sports require some degree of elasticity, and we need to train that, which isn't going to come from side bends, unfortunately. So what we have to do is move away from those types of exercises and move towards other exercises, which we'll talk a little bit more in the last slide. So hopefully bringing all this together now, suitcase carry versus a side bend. Now, a suitcase carry is a valuable exercise to certain people at certain times. So if an athlete needs spine and hip stability in a single leg stance, then the suitcase carry is valid. Spine power under a heavy load increases risk of injury. Now, spine power is essentially the spine moving or trying to create movement under load. So under heavy load increases the risk of injury. So if we're talking about a side bend, we're talking about creating power or creating movement of the spine under a heavy load. This is then therefore increasing the risk of injury. So what we're trying to do, again, as I've mentioned, all throughout this, and this, again, it's been sort of a long road to get there, but we can start to bring it all together in so much as we need to look at the athlete, we need to look at the sport, we need to potentially look at the position that they're playing, and we then need to select the exercises accordingly. We also need to look at injury mechanisms as a general rule and also specific to that sport. And what will then start to happen, as is potentially been happening as we've been going through this, is we've started to understand particular exercises that are going to be more advantageous and ones that are going to be less advantageous. So if we were to now look at core training for sport and then golf, tennis, combat sports and football. So the core works as one unit to store and recover elastic energy. So with anything where movement is happening quickly, this is where we prime the elastic band and it snaps back. So if you think about a pitcher in baseball, as their arm goes back, they're essentially priming an elastic band and then they let go and the arm flings forward. Similar to golf, you wind up into the backswing, prime that elastic band and then it whips back. So that works as one unit to store and recover elastic energy, ready to whip back. So there can be minimal movement, but the goal is to release the elastic band as I've described. Most sports require elasticity with a foundation of adequate strength. So as I've mentioned all the way through, and this is how I come to the conclusion that we don't need side bends, is one, it's creating spine power, which is a risk of injury. Two, it's trying to train one or two particular muscles of the core, whereas it works as one unit. So we need all of them or as many of them working as much as we can all of the time. And also, it's not generating this elasticity or this ability to store and recover elastic energy, which is where other exercises are much more effective. Again, the suitcase carry, if your athlete requires spine and hip stability in a single leg stance, it's more effective. If we need to create elastic strength, then we need to start moving lighter weights very fast, because it's that's going to create the elasticity that's going to create and then transfer over into the skills training when they come to practice the golf swing, the tennis serve, the gymnastics flip, the combat sport kick or punch, the goal kicking in rugby, American football, or even football or soccer if you're from America. So it's understanding all of this. And that is how I come to the conclusion, essentially, that side bend is an ineffective exercise. It's not necessary, and it's not effective for people who do sport. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully it's given you a better idea, or hopefully it's just given you a sort of an understanding of my rationale as to why I'm saying what I'm saying. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris. If you do have any questions, stick them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them, and maybe I'll be able to do another video like this where I can explain it in a little bit more detail. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris. I'll speak to you soon.